Well, it was Monday, the 18th of December. Well, I was at work and I got a call from my wife, and she said that Brett had been involved in a snowboarding accident at Mountain High with his brother.
They were snowboarding, and they were challenging each other. And there were two jumps that were alongside of each other. And the challenge was to jump from one jump across the opening between the two and land on the landing of the other jump. And when Brett was trying to do that, he was going a little too fast. And when he hit, he lost control and hit his head.
The neurosurgeons later described what happened to Brett's brain as trying to scramble an egg within its shell. So many nerves and connections had been severed, and they did not think he was going to live. I mean, they said, if by chance he does live, they used the word vegetable. He was hardly recognizable because he was so swollen. Although there were no external injuries, he was scraped and bruised and didn't quite look like himself.
Well, they were at a point where they weren't exactly sure why he was unconscious. They knew he'd sustained a head injury, but they didn't know what exactly.
We were scared because we didn't know what was going on. And when they put us in this little room, and when the doctors came to get us, we thought they were going to tell us he was dead.
They told us right up front, they said, there's not a single place, a single portion of his brain that has not sustained injury. His entire brain was bleeding. And as I recall, they said that our son that had left that morning to go skiing was never coming back. We would never see him again, is what they said. If he survives at all, he'd be lucky to brush his teeth by himself.
They showed us a CAT scan that they had done, and they assured us that according to the CAT scan, he should be waking up at any moment. But that didn't happen.
He didn't seem to respond because they had told us that he could hear us. They encouraged us to talk to him, play music for him, whatever was familiar for him.
We'd always talked to him, told him his friends were there, we loved him, we're still there for him. We were kind of explaining a little bit about what happened, but they said mostly it was our voices and stuff.
There were tons of people around him at all times, whether it was friends or family, people reading their Bibles to him, people singing to him. I remember trying to comfort friends who just didn't think he was gonna make it.
The doctors kept telling us horrible things. And I finally said to the one doctor, "Why are you trying to take my hope away from me?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not." And I said, "Well, don't worry, you can't, because my hope's not in you. My hope's in Jesus Christ. And no one can take that away from me. No one." And the doctor changed.
I remember one pivotal moment where, because Brett had the trach in his throat, and the respiratory therapist had to come and clean that out, and it was really hard to watch because it would make him kind of cough so hard that he would like heave and sit up in his bed, and his whole body would shake violently. It was horrible. His whole face would turn red. I remember the guy kind of leaning over Brett as he's doing this, and he said, "What, Brett, you don't like it? You don't like this? Then you show me."
And he'd say, "Come on, Brett, come on. If you don't like this, show me. Show me you don't like this." And he did.
Right at that moment, Brett raises his right arm just slightly, and he flipped the guy off. He flipped him off, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was embarrassed and excited at the same time, but turns out that is all the neurosurgeons needed to know. They didn't need any other proof, because they knew in order for him to express his feelings in that way, there was obviously brain activity.
On January 1st, at 1 o'clock in the morning, between 1 and 2:30 in the morning, he opened his eyes, which was the first time, but he had them open for an hour and a half. And then I had him close his eyes again because you could tell he was really tired. And he fell back to sleep.
I don't remember exactly the date or the time I was waking up. It wasn't like you're in a coma and then you just wake up your eyes and you're out of a coma. That's not how it works. It's very fuzzy, like fuzzy between waking up and being in a coma. I just remember my parents bringing stuff to me all the time, like my CDs and music and stuff and friends. And I asked my mom to bring my guitar into me so I could play it. And this was probably the very first time that it hit me that things are going to be different. She brought in my guitar, and I was expecting to be able to play it again. I couldn't even hold it up. It devastated me. I was like, all I did was go snowboarding, and now I can't even hold the guitar. Why is this happening? Why does this have to be like this? My whole life had been changed and reverted back to where I didn't want to be.
He didn't know how to walk, he didn't know how to talk, he didn't know how to eat. He had to relearn all those things. So, here's the man that I love and not able to do anything in a wheelchair, hardly awake. He was still kind of comatose.
Brett was like a baby. He had to learn everything all over again. And Robin stood by his side the whole time.
All along, it seemed like, okay, little things would happen where, we had a handshake from high school that we would always do, this elaborate handshake, and before he could speak, I must have grabbed his hand, his right hand, while he was in the bed and kind of just in that position or something, and then he started to do that. And that did make me cry because that showed he is still there, because I was worried. I was worried he wasn't going to remember who I was. That would have made it really tough.
I can't imagine this happening to anyone I love. I'm so thankful for her. I mean, she has loved me like Christ loves each and every one of us. She has loved me unconditionally and unselfishly, and she totally put her dreams aside to stay with me and to love me and to put me first. Now I look back at it, I wouldn't change it. It's just something that was in God's plan that had to have happened probably for an obvious reason.
At 18 years old, to be able to go through the stress of this, to see her boyfriend in a wheelchair, not able to eat, she could have just gotten up and left. I mean, this was hard. This was hard to go through this. Somehow, God revealed to her where she needed to be, and she listened to him, and she stayed with Brett through everything. She loved Brett. She knew this is where God wanted her to be, and he has walked them through trials, but both of them have been faithful to follow the will of God.